My fiancée cheated on me and got pregnant by her affair partner, then told everyone I was the one who cheated on her after she got caught. My entire family and almost everyone else all believed her. This is a throwaway account. I, 26M, used to be engaged to Chrissy, 29F. We were together for roughly 6 years. So my family was pretty close with her, and her family really liked me. Then when Chrissy suddenly got pregnant, she went and told my mother first at the beginning of December. And she started telling everybody right away. I was pretty mad Chrissy didn't tell me first, but she claimed that she just couldn't keep it in, and my mother is an almost chronic blabbermouth. My family immediately pushed me into proposing. But now I'm just thankful I didn't marry this woman. It was a bit of a rush, but I got a decent refurbished diamond ring for about $1,000, and then took Chrissy out to dinner for the proposal. She said yes, and I started looking into potential venues for a wedding and reception. I couldn't afford anything fancy, especially on a rush. And Chrissy was adamant it couldn't be a courthouse wedding or a Vegas wedding. I hadn't even finished those plans or put down payments on anything before crap hit the fan. Not long after proposing to her, Chrissy became more cold to me. She was already on her phone a lot, but something felt different as of late. She was more guarded of it, and would snap at me if I even asked about the smallest things. Then she'd claim it was just hormones, and she was just talking with friends a lot about the upcoming baby shower, among other excuses. She had her baby shower, and my mother hosted it. Chrissy got lots of gifts from friends and family, and my mother bought her an expensive stroller. Things seemed to be going okay. But then in December, Chrissy started to get even more bitter toward me, and looked like she was forced to smile anytime I was around her. I confided in my best friend about it, and he told me that I'd been ignoring red flags from Chrissy the whole time we were together. He tried to tell me, but I just wouldn't listen to him before. He convinced me to check her phone and see if she was cheating, then told me what apps to look into and check every name in her logs, as well as her trash folder. Chrissy's phone wasn't hard to get. She didn't tuck it under her pillow or anything. It was always charging on the nightstand while she slept, and it unlocked with her thumbprint. I got out of bed and pretended to go to the bathroom, but actually went into the living room, just stayed there quietly sitting in the dark until I heard her start snoring again. She's a fairly light sleeper, so I had to be extra quiet and careful. The most tricky part was pressing her thumb on the phone while she was asleep without waking her. I left the bedroom door cracked, so I had just enough light to see. Then I had to cover the phone screen with a towel to keep the screen from being noticeable after lighting up when I unplugged it, and then I carefully maneuvered it under her hand to unlock it. It opened up, and then I carefully tiptoed out of the room and muted it. I had to do all of this unimaginably slowly and quietly to make sure I didn't wake her. Then I went into the living room to look through the phone. The messages showing the affair were all incredibly easy to find. Chrissy just put their entire text convo under the name Karen. She didn't even try to hide it in another app. Just plain texting. I'm actually thankful she was so careless. There was even plenty of pictures of her with this guy in her photo gallery. Her trash folder was completely empty, meaning she'd possibly not bothered to delete anything from the affair. And I'm not joking about her using the name Karen. She loves stuff about Karens and is addicted to Reddit videos. So she'll probably see this post sooner or later. Though I really don't care anymore. I recognized the pictures of the man she'd been cheating with. He was her coworker, and also her high school boyfriend that she reconnected with when he got his job at the same company as her about a year and a half ago. He is taller and better looking than me, and in much better shape. But Chrissy claimed that the relationship she had with him now was completely platonic, and that she had no feelings for him anymore after a decade apart. But my God, the things they had together in that text log. Chrissy fully admitted the baby was his, and even had a rough discernible timeline of the affair and conception date for the pregnancy, which was during a week I'd been away on a work trip. She called me a simp and claimed I'd believe anything she told me. They'd also exchanged some extremely detailed and graphic erotic fantasies with each other about pregnant stuff and wanting to cuck me together. I was ready to vomit from how twisted it all was. I could take seeing that sort of stuff on the internet just fine, but to see it from my own fiancé's phone just broke me. It made me feel sick, but I held it in to keep scrolling and gathering evidence. Among the things Chrissy said about me, she remarked her AP was bigger than me too, and that I could never satisfy her the way he could. Together, they also discussed some crazy plan to get my name on the baby's birth certificate, so her family wouldn't be the wiser about her cheating. And then she'd divorce me in a few years for the alimony, once she was certain I couldn't do anything about it. And then she and him could play house together like they always wanted. I was horrified, heartbroken, and then furious. I was taking screenshots and texting them to myself constantly. I'm not sure how many hours I'd been at it, but it was long enough that Chrissy had apparently woken up, realized her phone was not there, and screamed at me when she came out of the bedroom and saw me on the couch with her phone. Not an angry scream, a horrified, "I've been caught" one. She ripped the phone out of my hands and clutched it to her chest like her life depended on it, but I had gotten more than enough from it by then. She immediately tried to tell me it was all just play talk, and that it was only an emotional affair. I called her AB*TCH, a liar, and WH*re. There's no way it was an emotional affair only. Not after what I read. My eyes were open to all the stuff she'd been doing. She asked how long I'd been reading through the texts. I just curtly replied, "Long enough." She looked completely defeated after I said that. Then I told her to get out. I didn't care what time it was. The apartment still only has my name on the lease, and I can afford to keep it without her. She silently packed some clothes and left. Not even any tears from her. In fact, she had this look that I can only describe as, "I don't have to pretend anymore." And she didn't look back as she went out the door. So she really felt nothing for me. I was just her safety net. I felt so sick that I ended up puking repeatedly in the bathroom right after she left, and then had a bit of a tantrum throwing Chrissy's stuff on the floor. I called in sick to work, and then played video games till I passed out on the couch. My biggest mistake was not immediately telling everyone about the affair, which gave Chrissy time to create and spread her own narrative. At some point I woke up to my mother calling me. She was flipping out on me that Chrissy said I cheated on her. I tried to tell her it was the opposite, but she didn't believe a word I said. And then she actually told me I was guilty until proven innocent, before hanging up and blocking my number. My own mother actually blocked my number. I tried calling their house phone, but they refused to pick up. So I tried going over to their house in the evening when I knew they'd be home, so I could explain what was really going on. But Chrissy was already there. She was on the couch with my mother comforting her, and started fake sobbing the moment she saw me. My father actually came out of nowhere and sucker punched me in the jaw, then told me he'd raised me better, before shoving me out of the house without even a chance to explain what really happened. Then my grandparents called me from their house phone and told me not to come to Christmas. None of them would believe me. They all loved Chrissy. To that point, everyone believed she'd been the perfect one for me. My mother especially loved her, and had been spending more time with her since Chrissy announced she was pregnant. So they all took her word over mine. They even had Chrissy still come spend Christmas Eve with them. As for me, I spent Christmas alone and eating a reheated roast chicken from the supermarket. I'm not ashamed to admit I cried a bit too. After Christmas was over, I found out from my grandparents texting me that I was barred by them and my parents from New Year's as well. I knew it was coming. I tried multiple times to contact anyone in the family I could, but they all believed Chrissy and thought I was a scumbag. Only my closest friends believed me after seeing the screenshots I got from Chrissy's phone. But most people we mutually knew were on Chrissy's side. I was even called into HR at work because they were getting anonymous calls about me. I showed them the screenshots on my phone and explained the whole story, and HR said they were giving me a warning. I got a signed and copied record of the HR meeting because I knew I was going to need it for the pile of evidence I was making. I already tried posting the text screenshots on social media, but Chrissy claimed they were all faked. So I did the only thing I could do. I went to a lawyer. I had a legal letter drafted to Chrissy that said I'd sue for defamation, and I wanted a DNA test for her unborn child. She called me as soon as she got the letter, and I told her I was recording the phone call. She got mad and told me to stop. I said no, and she either consents to being recorded, or we can talk through a lawyer. She said fine, and told me she would not consent to a DNA test. She still tried to claim I was the baby's father, and that she would be coming after me for child support. She even called me a deadbeat, probably also as part of her act. So I reminded her she'd need a DNA test just to get child support, and I wouldn't let her use my family to pressure me into paying for a child that's not mine. She already got them to throw me out, and even spent Christmas Eve with my family after throwing me under the bus. She tried to object, and I said I'd see her in court, and the court would make her have a paternity test whether she liked it or not. And then I'd sue her for defamation on top of it, because DNA doesn't lie. I was ready to go scorched earth. I heard a deep sigh from her, and then she finally admitted the baby wasn't mine. I asked her why she did all this to me. She was already going to leave me for the other guy, so why destroy my life? She said that she'd taken the opportunity for an easy out, because it was either her or me, and she didn't want to lose everything she'd worked for. Everyone in her family and mine saw her as my future wife, and she couldn't just leave me without a good reason. I asked her why she cheated, and she said she'd simply had long fallen out of love with me, and she'd only started dating me on the rebound after a bad breakup, which I was not aware of till then. I wouldn't say I was a goody two-shoes. Neither of us were. But Chrissy was definitely a succubus. She wanted excitement. and the thrill she got from the affair gave it to her, but was still pretending to be with me because I was a temporary safety net, until I found out her plan. I told Chrissy that I've got more than enough evidence for a defamation lawsuit and conspiracy to commit paternity fraud, and she could either come clean to everyone, or I'd make sure she went down in court for framing me. I doubt she and her AP would stay employed if word got to their company. Chrissy knew I wasn't bluffing, so she immediately removed everything from her social media pertaining to the event, and then replaced it all with a big "I was wrong" sob story in which she still tried to act like the victim despite being the cheater. Then she went to my parents to confess the truth, and of all things, tried to beg them to convince me to take her back. I guess she wanted her safety net a while longer. My parents were so appalled that they threw her out and told her to never return. Then they called me, begging that I come over and talk to them. So I did. They were extremely apologetic and said they couldn't believe they'd sided with a cheater. I said that was funny because my father punched me and didn't even give me a chance to explain. And my mother told me I was guilty until proven innocent before blocking my number. My father turned to her and asked if she really said that, and she did not look well. You see, my mother had a bit of a bad midlife crisis in the past where she fell in with a couple of hardcore feminists and claimed they were just normal friends to her. But they were all really nasty, manipulative women that tried to tear her away from her family. They treated my father and I like we were cockroaches, and I heard many of them say more than once that they believed all men were guilty until proven innocent. My father nearly divorced my mother over the stuff that group was putting in her head because she'd stopped doing anything around the house and claimed she wasn't being treated equally. My parents only saved their marriage because the rest of the family got involved, and my mother agreed to marriage counseling after my father threatened divorce during an intervention. My father forgave her, and my mother promised to cut off her feminist friends completely. Well, it turns out she didn't keep that promise. She claimed she only kept in touch a little bit, but I'm sure it was more than that. My father is still furious with her, and my mother had to show him all of her messages with them, which my father described as mostly normal friend talk, but wouldn't elaborate further. Aside from the feminist issue, my mother said through tears that she'd sided with Chrissy so quickly because she was desperate for grandchildren. I'm her oldest child, so she was really hoping I'd get married and have kids first. And of course, they all thought Chrissy's pregnancy was mine. My grandparents also showed up to my parents' house to apologize to me for believing the words of Chrissy without even hearing my side. The whole family is upset and pointing fingers at each other about how they not only banned me from Christmas and New Year's, but had Chrissy over for Christmas Eve while they all doted on her and kept talking about the first grandchild of the family. My father, in his misplaced anger, had actually returned all the Christmas presents they'd gotten for me and donated the ones that I'd left under their tree for them before the whole cheater incident started. My parents are now struggling to find and get all the gifts back, but the charity my father gave the gifts I'd gotten for my parents to is giving him the runaround. My father has also been getting serious flack for punching me. But no matter what they do, I'm still forever gonna have the memory of parents that believed the wrong person and didn't even give me a chance to explain before they decided I was guilty. They cut off their own son over someone else's lies during the holidays. I still haven't forgiven them. The family in group chat tried suggesting a second Christmas party, but we're already well past Christmas into January and had a lot of family members come from out of state just for Christmas 2024. And I missed it all because they banned me from coming. Yet Chrissy got to be the pregnant devil in disguise they all doted on, while I was crying and munching on microwave chicken. At this point, a second Christmas party held just for me would feel out of pity, and I don't think I could be comfortable during any of it. My grandmother practically lost it crying when I told her how I'd spent my Christmas and New Year's alone and dejected. A party just can't make up for everything they did. I told them all that I just can't right now, and I need space. I used to love Christmas. It was one of my favorite holidays. We as a family mainly focus on gifts for kids and parents, like me getting gifts for my parents, and them for me, and them for their own parents. We do a secret Santa lottery for the others. I drew my uncle's name in the secret Santa lottery last year, and got him a new smartwatch because I knew his old one was on its last legs. I ended up sending it to him in the mail a couple weeks after Christmas because I just didn't know what else to do with it. I didn't want to return it like my parents did their gifts for me. And I still don't know who drew my name in the secret Santa. They haven't told me. And not to sound petty or selfish, but I didn't receive any Christmas gifts at all from anyone as of yet. My uncle did call me nearly tears about still sending my gift to him after he found out the truth about Chrissy, and told me he was so sorry for not sticking up for me. As for Chrissy, she and her AP pretty much lost everything. They shut down all their social medias and quit their jobs before they could have a chance of being outed and fired. They moved away last week after crashing with Chrissy's parents for a while. My mother did demand back the expensive stroller she'd gifted Chrissy during her baby shower, and Chrissy refused to give it back. She refused to give back any of the gifts anyone gave her. My mother was out a lot of money for that stroller, and she hadn't even told my father how much she'd spent on it till they couldn't get it back. Chrissy also refused to return the engagement ring I bought for her. She was reportedly still wearing it, last I heard. I guess she's keeping it for the engagement to her AP, which Chrissy's parents told me was official now. But I consider the financial loss from the ring to have been a small price paid to have not married that horrible woman. I wanted justice, but there's no point in telling the HR of their former employer. It wouldn't do much now, or bring me any satisfaction, and I just know Chrissy would retaliate if I caused a scandal that might make her unemployable in her field. For now, though, her friends all cut her off, and her parents contacted me with major apologies, and that they were absolutely horrified to find out everything she'd done. But they aren't cutting her off because she's their only daughter, and they want to know their grandchild, which I'm guessing Chrissy will probably be using as emotional blackmail to them at this point. The AP's parents contacted me too, and were absolutely livid at him for what he did. They've told him he'd be disowned completely unless he marries Chrissy, and told him he's not welcome in their house for a long time. He'd been living with them rent-free since moving back to the area because he was saving for a house. So he and Chrissy should have the seed money to start over somewhere else. As for me, I got a ton of apologies from everyone who believed Chrissy, and my friends are telling me there's plenty of fish in the sea. And Chrissy was just a shark masquerading as a tuna. I don't know. I was hoping to be in a committed relationship by 30, but I don't want to force myself to date just for the sake of that. Edit. I get some people are mad I mentioned the feminist issue with my mother, but I only explained that for context. The two women she did hang out with back then were very toxic and had her acting like a 40-year-old teenager. My parents both work and both do equal chores around the house. Their marriage was on the rocks a decade ago, but it's been good ever since they got counseling. And yes, I know this probably all sounds fake, but it's so long because there was a lot to tell. I don't consider this a sort of woman bad story like I saw in the comments. That's just sick. And I don't blame other women for what Chrissy did. That was all her and her affair partner. I don't blame all for the actions of two. Yeah, they screwed me over, and I'm probably going to be very angry at my parents for quite some time.